So, welcome to my talk, everybody. And first of all, I'd like to say that I am really super happy to be on an actual stage, in an actual room, with actual people on chairs. So, very good to be here. And as you can see, today I'm going to talk about this manifesto. You know, since my first talk at DevOps Days, which was in 2020, in the midst of Corona, I got to learn the DevOps community as a group of people that actually want to improve things and make things better. And I do think that, like most of us, by now got some sort of an agile practice off the ground. But I don't know about you, but I see a lot of teams actually wrestling with, well, getting ahead of that initial practice, right, and making that better. And especially it's the product owner role, I think, that needs a lot of criticality. It's often carried out with this process mindset instead of a actual product mindset, which might contribute to the idea, by the way, that like Scrum and maybe even Agile is needlessly dogmatic and is actually limiting teams in their potential. Yeah, so I hope, that's actually my goal of this talk today, that I'm going to inspire you and help you go from this process mindset to a product mindset and unlock the full potential of your team. So let me get started with some fascinating outcomes of such a product mindset. Who can tell me what we're looking at here? What's that? Windows XP. Well, yes. And what has happened here? Sorry? It's a little broader, indeed. So someone put this taskbar to the right and then enlarged it as such that it's now covering half of the screen, right? Yeah, your father called it, my mother-in-law called me. He said, like, Henk, I have this blue screen. Well, you can imagine I had a different scenario in thought, right? So let me ask another question. Who in this room is or was actually using his or her configuration like this? Nobody, right? There you go. So I'm super fascinated by this. And maybe you're like, yeah, Henk, funny example, haha. But this was 2004, right? Windows XP. We're now in the 2020s. Like, things have improved. Well, this is Windows 10, screenshot in 2019. Actually, I should have taken a more recent one. Still possible. And this is Microsoft, you know, like, yeah, it's Microsoft, but like, they also have smart people there, and they have had meetings about this, right? So it's only since Windows 11 that they have actually decided to remove this feature. So only since Windows 11 you cannot enlarge the taskbar anymore and not move it anymore. Well, actually you can, but then you have to do this registry hack, right, you know. But it took them some time. There's a question.
Yeah, I complained about this because I was on the left side. They're fixing it.
Good. Well, let's see what happens. So, but this is outcomes, examples of this product mindset. And, you know, I think there are many, many, many examples of this, right? So who knows what this is, this screenshot in the top left? You recognize it? I'm sure almost all of us use it. Gmail, indeed. So who knows what happens if you click the checkbox? Exactly, nice. It selects only the first page, so it selects the emails behind the drop-down list. So it actually does not manipulate these items, because yeah, what should it do, right? Select all and none, like, doesn't make sense. But from a usability perspective, well, it's fascinating. So humans do understand how this works. It's fascinating. I took this screenshot myself from Photoshop. Again, like, well, when I want to save this file, but no, I want to minimize my compatibility somehow. Huh? You always want to have the checkbox checked, right? Well, then it's not saved, right? If you cancel, yeah. And then there is the something happened thingy from the Windows 10 setup. And maybe, well, I see some of you looking like, yeah, but that one is, well, it has been photoshopped, right? Well, got news for you. It's an actual screenshot on an actual forum thread from Microsoft themselves. I have the link here in my notes, so you can check it up. You can verify it yourself. It exists. Something happened. Someone wrote that down, right? That's interesting. By the way, my name is Henk van der Schuur. I started my life as a software developer. Well, not my life, but my career. And then I did a PhD, so you don't have to. Well, actually, it was fun because I researched software telemetry and how software vendors and software companies can actually not only improve their products, but also their internal processes based on the behavior of the software in the field, but also the behavior of the end users. Then I started at AVA Software, maybe a quite known Dutch ERP vendor, and I was a product manager overseeing their ERP products, the current and future ones, for almost 7 years. And I'm a customer director at Schuur, working with the self-steering teams that we have. We have no managers, self-steering teams with experts in the lead. Well, working on mission-critical solutions for customers like Jumbo, PostNL, the Dutch Railways, etc. You know, and through these years, I have seen many teams wrestling with this product mindset. And there are, I think, many teams and organizations struggling to go from this process to a product mindset in their agile development. So I'm going to share, I think, a couple of things with you today that well, might work for you, and maybe some that don't. And I think those are applicable not only in product context itself, but they might be applied to each and every project that you basically execute. So if we're talking about products, like software products, what are we talking about then? Well, let's have a look at this definition. I like this one because it has the what, the why, and how all in it. So a software product is a functional software system that satisfies user requirements and contributes to business goals. And it does that by providing solutions to a domain-specific problem. So in essence, I think a product or a software product doesn't have a right to exist in itself, right? It should contribute to the goals of people, teams, and organizations. And so I find it so interesting that, like, if we have a look at the book of product ownership of the Holy Scrum Bible, there it is. There is a lot of product in there, right? So there is the notion of product, so it is not bad in itself, I'd say. And also, well, you might know there's a lot of trainings available, right? So you have product owner 1, 2, 3, and then there's even an advanced version of the product ownership training. And also, if we look at this other framework, I can already feel it. So you are super fans of this, right? There's a lot of product in there. So you have product owners, product management, solution management, and also epic owners. By the way, who knows where the customer is in this framework? Nowhere? Well, I think it's here, but it's called customer centricity. And also it's framed in this design thinking thing. So I guess that's the customer, but not sure. And I came across this, poll. And this person said, like, how would you characterize the role of the Scrum product owner? And basically 35% of 182 participants was like, this is the Achilles heel. And actually I tend to agree. So what is then happening? Because at the same time, we have people like Mary Poppendick. For those who don't know her, she is the author of Lean Software Development. I think that the product owner is the worst thing that Scrum has visited on the software world. It's a bad idea. Or there's Mike Cohn, one of the founders of the Scrum Alliance and contributors to the Scrum software development method. He says, hey, teams are expected to collaboratively make decisions, technical decisions. So why not do the same for product decisions? What is that? And I think there are quite some dark patterns that are happening within teams that are bringing Mary and Mike to these statements. Let's highlight a couple of those. I see a lot of product owners, for instance, that consider themselves to be outside or even above the team. But actually what they do is form lonely bottlenecks, limiting the performance of teams. Or often there's also a lack of product mandate. So product owners are often these, well, basically business puppets, right? And just like speaking what the boss says. Or they exert a super unhealthy focus on short-term backlog details instead of, well, living the product vision, I would almost say. So, what to do about it? Let's bring in the product mindset manifesto. It has 3 values, of which this is the first one. Product leadership over process and personal prestige. So what does that mean, product leadership? Well, I think, first of all, it helps very much if you not only understand, but also talk both tech and business and end user experience. So it helps if you're able to put yourselves in the end user's shoes, right? Yeah, so that's there. Second, I think if anything, product leadership is about more than the software planning and production process only, right? So I've seen many product owners who are basically glorified Scrum Masters or Agile coaches, putting an immense focus on the way of working or how the story description should be or the project progress itself instead of the actual product. And I think product leadership is about, like, we're in the lead of crafting a product, but also maintaining a roadmap to continuously craft it. Focus is another one. I think that's part of product leadership. And maybe you're there and said, like, yeah, Henk, but product ownership is about, like, to be this 5-legged sheep, you know, and like wear all these different hats and be involved in everything, marketing, etc., etc. Well, exactly. So don't have this product ownership role as a side job. What happens a lot, I think. Because too little focus means basically, what is it? The outsourcing and delegation of a lot of product responsibilities. And what I also see happen is the why behind the product or a feature is basically nobody knows anymore. It's gone. So product leadership is about enabling a team to confidently make a call and give commitment on the scope of a particular feature and the next release, maybe. Then there is stakeholder management. That is also part of it. So first of all, there's the business. That is, well, in a positive scenario, representing the end user through business owners and maybe the management. They have to define, like, hey, what is the actual desire? What is the job to be done? And then, like, that goes into a plan, and then it lands in, like, development, right? So, hey, let's build this thing. And you have to be in line with, well, the teams, product owners, maybe also their managers. And then things go into operations. People involved with all things production, I'd say, security, privacy, uptime, availability, you name all the abilities. And by the way, I think this operations part is super important to also, again, put feedback to the business and shape their next desire. Like, hey, this feature actually isn't used that much. So in this whole biz DevOps game, I think it's super important that you identify what are the right stakeholders with actual mandate, so the relevant ones with actual mandate, and, well, have a healthy relationship with them and collaborate with them. And last but not least, I think it's not about us, right? So yes, we are maybe considered to be like the 5-legged sheep, etc., but we're still part of the team and not outside it, and certainly not above it, I'd say. So let's go to the second value, useful functionality over feature quantity. You know, the first value, product leadership, is about identifying what is a useful feature. And that's helping us, right, with that. But I've spoken to many people also say, like, Henk, why do we even have this debate? We can just like create a setting, right, for this feature. Like, done. And then the end user can just choose for herself. Well, yes, that could be an option. But first, I think creating settings often implies just a lack of vision, right? It's basically postponing responsibility to the end user. And secondly, you know, on the long term, this is what happens. So I took a couple of screenshots of Windows, of Microsoft Word. Please note, this is only the first 3 screenshots of the settings of Microsoft Word, so general, view, and edit. There's quite some checkboxes in there, right? So after 3 screenshots, I just stopped. So this is basically that is like accumulating. Because who of you is actually carefully, well, checking and unchecking them all by one? Yeah, maybe 1 or 2, because just when you need it, yeah, if you can find it, indeed. So many settings is basically many depth. And then there's this, right? So we all know the actual cost of building a feature is always higher than the original estimate. And then we're only talking about the functional cost. But there's also the non-functional cost, right? Of, well, settings and the related functionality. Because like we have to maintain it in production. So maintain that it's still secure, auditable, well, privacy is covered, etc. So I think successfully delivering a product involves saying no a lot. And that is difficult, I know. Because saying no is saying no to one thing. Saying yes is saying no to many things. It's like Apple says. Apple made this, what is it, marketing movie 10 years ago now. Like, there is 1,000 no's for every yes, because we continuously craft until perfection. Something like that. And it also means like we have to have a bit of stamina, right? We cannot just be the business puppet and just like, okay, we'll do what you say. No, we have to like challenge business, management, etc., to have a healthy conversation. Like, hey, but is this really a healthy feature, a useful feature? As product owners, I believe we embody the product basically. Oh, and mind you, once like this has been decided and you have like decided the sprint goal, like, okay, this is what we're going to do, this stamina is still required, right? Because if you say yes, then you get this whole stakeholder field basically challenging you again, like, well, is this really what we want? It will cause difficulties or in production. Ooh. So no, then it's also part of this product leadership to keep course and move on. Well, that brings me to the third value, staying on course over satisfying singular milestones. And basically, most roadmaps I've seen look like this. So they go from milestone to milestone, straight to the top. But hey, unexpected things happen, right? So the team says, hey, you know what? Actually, building this feature takes us a little bit longer to finish. Or team discovers, like, hey, we have this component. It needs some refactoring before we can meet the performance standards. Or end users turn out to be not so happy with what you've built. And, well, basically, sometimes, in short, you need to go to the dark side of the mountain to get to the top. And, you know, staying on course is important. And I think maybe one way of looking at it is like this, because the essence is well, having a healthy roadmap, but also effectively communicating about it. So if you look at this picture, then horizontally you see basically the timeline of a project from start to finish, and vertically you see the variability of estimates. So a way of looking at this roadmap is through this, I think, what we call the cone of uncertainty. And I think the main message here is, so in the timeline, by the way, you have like a point in time where you start as a team populating the backlog, and at one other point, like the backlog is not only populated, but it's also refined and prioritized. The main thing here is, I think, don't communicate too early in this, well, no promise play, where the variability of the estimates of your team is still, or might still vary by a factor of 16. If you do it with like broad strokes and in broad terms and periods. You want to do it to the right? And here's another way of looking at this. And maybe you know this from 37 Signals, the book Shape Up. They basically say work is like a hill in which you have two phases. So at the start, there is quite some time needed as a team to identify like what is actually the job to be done. What do we need to do here? And then after that, there is, once you know that, actually getting the job done, which is like a bit easier oftentimes. So it's down the slope. Ideally, you start make promises from product ownership when you know, like, hey, this is the job to be done, because only then, well, you have some sort of knowledge about, like, hey, what is the thing we're going to do, and then still things might change. And well, also if we then create this first scope, often referred to as a minimal viable product, I think it's good to, well, note that, like, this is not a MVP, right? It's not just a part of a functional scope that we're going to deliver in the first phase. I think this should be the MVP, where you'll not only deliver the functional, but also non-functional part. So what you deliver should also be reliable, it should be usable, but also even maybe nice for the end user to use. And, you know, when an MVP goes to production, it's often followed by this period of hypercare, right? Big bugs come up and the production environment is still a bit different than we would have expected, etc. And this is challenging us even more, right, to keep on course. And, well, maybe because of it, I've seen many product owners that basically ignore, like, all the feedback that's coming, both from the team, like, hey, we really need to fix these non-functionals, as well as from end users, like, we don't like what you've built here. And maybe a famous example of this is, who knows, what is this? Bunk, yes, and it's a version 2 of their app, to be precise, which is nice and clear. Like, there's some tabs and like a few buttons and accounts. And at one point in time, they released version 3 of the app with, well, less tabs, which might be a good thing, but also a bit of different interface with a rainbow button and stuff. Well, turned out there were a lot of complaints about it because, like, end users didn't understand anymore, and lots of features were basically hidden behind all kind of menus and settings. And I think they had to, well, revamp their roadmap to make things better. And now the rainbow button is gone again, and things have been improved. But yeah, that's I think a good example of incorporating feedback and yeah, dealing with that. So I think in the end, staying on course with the roadmap is about finding the right balance, right? And balancing the shiny new features with the right non-functionals, which are often invisible. Meeting product roadmap milestones with staying on course, and end user happiness and the investment that you need to make. So to reiterate, this product mindset manifesto has 3 values. Product leadership over process personal prestige, useful functionality over feature quantity, staying on course over satisfying singular milestones. And I truly believe that if we, with our teams, are able to embrace these values and establish a sense of product thinking as opposed to this process thinking, it will really improve the team happiness, business satisfaction, and also unlock the power of all teams. So with that, I hope you are super inspired to take this on board, these values, maybe inspire your colleagues yourself. I think if you take one thing from this talk, let it be this. So regardless of what your project is, run your project as it were a product release. Thanks for attending my talk, and I will be happy to answer your questions.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're out of time for questions, but...